Have you ever stopped to think that most of the things keeping you awake at night, the fear of being judged, the pressure to succeed, that conversation that went wrong, probably mean absolutely nothing on the scale of the universe? We live as if the world were holding its breath, waiting for our next move. We suffer from problems before they even happen, wasting our energy on dilemmas that, in 100 years, won't even be dust. The truth is that we live in a cycle of anxiety, trying to be important to people who are just as lost in their own worries. But what if I told you that the secret to your greatest growth, mentally, emotionally, and financially, isn't becoming bigger, but finally understanding just how small you are? Today, we're going to explore why accepting your own insignificance is the most liberating thing you can do for your future. The reality check. Insignificance as a strategic advantage. The first step toward your evolution is not the addition of new skills, but the subtraction of a fundamental belief, the idea that you are the central protagonist of a story being watched by the universe. Our daily anxiety is, in essence, a disease of the ego. We live under the constant weight of an imaginary camera that seems to be recording our every move, judging our failures and measuring our successes. This distorted perception leads us into a state of strategic paralysis. The fear of investing, the fear of expressing our own ideas, and above all, the fear of failure. When you analyze your journey against the vastness of time and space, your first reaction may be an uncomfortable sense of emptiness. That's normal. We are conditioned to seek meaning through importance. However, this pursuit is precisely what creates the mental noise that drains your energy. By internalizing that your presence in human history is an event of infinitesimal duration and localized impact, you are not diminishing yourself. In fact, you are performing an emotional decompression. This smallness is a raw strategic advantage. Think about it. If your problems, your financial dilemmas, and your mistakes have no cosmic repercussions, the level of risk you can afford to take increases exponentially. When you understand that no one is paying as much attention to you as you are to yourself, because everyone is equally occupied managing their own insignificance, other people's opinions cease to be a deciding factor. By deconstructing this exaggerated sense of importance, you clear the channel for what truly matters, intentional behavior. You stop making decisions based on preserving an illusory image and start making decisions based on the reality of the facts and the efficiency of your results. Insignificance, when properly understood, does not generate destructive nihilism. It generates the courage to act. It removes the spectacle from life and returns to you the responsibility of being merely the architect of your own day, free from the chains of imaginary judgment. The end of external validation, why yourself needs to stop seeking applause. Let's be honest. You've probably refrained from doing something important, such as starting that side project, posting authentic content, or even making a radical lifestyle change simply because you were afraid of what your family WhatsApp group or your social media friends might think. This is not merely a weakness of character. It's a chemical addiction. Deep within your evolutionary wiring, your brain interprets rejection as a threat to survival. In the past, being expelled from the tribe meant the end. Today, being canceled or simply ignored on a social media post triggers the same cortisol response. But here's the secret. Your search for approval is a bottomless pit. A practical example. Think about that investment you never made or the career transition you never dared to pursue. Why didn't you act? Because, deep down, you were more concerned with maintaining the appearance of being someone who made it in the eyes of people who, 10 years from now, will barely know where you live. You are paying a high price with your time and your money to maintain a facade that nobody is really looking at. When you realize that other people's applause is a worthless currency, something changes inside you. You stop trying to sell a success you haven't yet built and begin focusing on creating value that no one can take away. Living for validation is like building a house on sand. The first gust of opposing opinion brings everything down. It's not about being recognized. It's about being real. And believe me, the sense of freedom you feel when making a decision simply because it aligns with your purpose, not because it will be liked or praised, is the first step toward true independence. Let's talk about a monster you feed every day: deconstructing anxiety. The noise that consumes your potential. You know that feeling of tightness in your chest, that insomnia at 3 a.m. while mentally replaying a meeting that's already over or imagining failure in something that hasn't even begun? Much of that is not planning. It's noise. There is a huge difference between technical concern and existential noise. Technical concern is useful. It's when you analyze the risks of an investment, calculate your budget, or prepare for a challenge. It is rational, focused, and has an expiration date. But what you practice most of the time is existential noise. It's your mind trying to predict the unpredictable, suffering over variables that are completely outside your control. Want a practical example? Imagine you're deciding whether to change careers or start a business. Technical concern asks, do I have financial reserves? What is my exit plan? Existential noise, the kind you want to eliminate, asks, what if people think I'm a failure? What if I'm the only one in my group of friends who fails? Do you see it? The noise focuses on your self-image, not on the real problem. It keeps you in a permanent state of fight or flight, and your brain, under stress, cannot be creative or make smart financial decisions. It only wants to protect itself. That's why, when you're anxious, the last thing you're able to do is grow or evolve. You enter survival mode. The truth is that your brain is telling you a lie. It swears that by worrying excessively, it is protecting you. It says, if I think about the worst-case scenario enough, I'll be prepared when it happens. Nonsense. All that does is drain your emotional battery. While you spend hours solving imaginary problems, you fail to take action in the real world. The lesson here is simple, yet brutally difficult to apply. If something cannot be solved through a clear action right now, it is not a concern, it is a burden. And burdens do not carry us toward success. They bury us. The next time that tightness in your chest appears, ask yourself, is what I'm feeling a signal for action, or is it just my ego afraid of being exposed? If it's the latter, know that you're simply wasting time on an internal play that doesn't pay bills and doesn't help you grow. Most people I know live in a state of perpetual waiting. Focus on the present versus obsession with the future. The illusion of when they treat life as if it were a draft being written now, but one that will only truly begin at some point in the future. When I get promoted, I'll have peace. When I finish paying off this debt, I'll finally live. When I have X amount of money in my account, then I'll be happy. This obsession with tomorrow is the most efficient fuel for destroying your present. Think about how much time you waste analyzing charts, reading forecasts, or worrying about macroeconomic scenarios you cannot change, while neglecting the small decisions that make up your day. The future is an abstraction. The present is the only place where life happens, where money is earned, and where character is forged. Let's take a classic example. How many times have you found yourself sitting at a meal with family or friends while your mind was 1,000 miles away, calculating problems that would only exist 6 months from now? You were physically present, but your awareness was absent. When you live this way, you not only lose the pleasure of the present moment, you lose the quality of your execution. Your best work, your sharpest financial thinking, and your greatest mental clarity only exist when you are fully engaged with what is in front of you. Living for the future is an addiction to mental adrenaline. We feel productive, because we're worried, as if anticipated suffering were a form of control. It isn't. It is merely a form of chronic anxiety that drains your vitality. When you become a hostage to this habit, you become incapable of noticing the opportunities right in front of you because you are blinded by your own projections. The discipline and consistency we value so highly can only be sustained through daily practice. You do not build a financial empire or an uncheckable identity in the future. You build it one brick at a time today. Every spending decision, every hour of focused study, every moment of complete concentration is what truly shapes your tomorrow. When you stop living in expectation of when and become relentless in the now, anxiety loses its space. It cannot survive in a mind that is too busy building something real in this very moment. Stop treating today as merely a stepping stone toward a glorious future that may never arrive exactly as planned. Today is the raw material. Today is where you exercise your power. Let's face the truth without filters. Most of your financial anxiety does not come from a lack of opportunities, but from your unhealthy obsession with being seen as someone who has already made it. You live, almost mechanically, in a continuous stage play where the script is written by the expectations of strangers. The stage? Your social media profiles, the car you drive, the brands you wear, the restaurant where you check in. The audience? People who, in most cases, are so buried in their own insecurities that they barely have time to analyze your facade. Yet, even knowing this, you continue sacrificing your life energy in jobs that drain your soul, all to maintain a visual standard that, deep down, you know is fragile. The cost of appearances is one of the quietest and most destructive poisons of our era. When you spend money, you don't have to impress people you don't even like. You are not buying possessions, you are buying your own slavery. Think about it in technical terms. If you spend 30% or 40% of your monthly income sustaining a lifestyle of display years-long financing payments, status subscriptions, and the recurring consumption of assets that depreciate the moment you leave the store, you are not merely losing money. You are losing your escape window. If that amount were allocated to assets that multiply in value, over the course of a decade you would gain the independence of not having to submit to abusive bosses, toxic work environments, or unbearable pressure. By choosing the display window, you chose to trade tomorrow's freedom for today's validation. The display window turns you into a highly paid employee of your own vanity. You work for the bank, you work for the car manufacturer, you work for luxury brands, while your true self, the one that wants to create, evolve, and leave a legacy slowly withers away in a gray office. The question that requires courage is this: who would you be if the world lost the ability to observe you? If Instagram didn't exist, if no one could see your car or your house, would you still make the same choices? Most people experience an existential collapse when answering that question because they have never stopped to build an identity based on internal values. They are empty shells filled with objects. The real breakthrough happens when you embrace strategic silence. People who are building real empires, both financial and intellectual, do not waste a single second of their day paving the road so that others can know how much they own. They understand that status is a synthetic drug. It provides an immediate dopamine spike, but demands a cruel maintenance cost. Status is a golden prison that requires you to keep running at the same speed, or even faster, just to keep the illusion alive. Silence, on the other hand, is the uniform of those who already understand how the game works. Being rich means having the power to say no to what you do not want. Looking rich means having the obligation to say yes to everything that keeps the lie alive. When you abandon the need to be a character for an audience, you gain a brutal competitive advantage. You recover your capital. You stop spending to prove value and start investing to create value. You stop being an extra in someone else's story and become the sole author of your own narrative. Invisibility is your greatest asset. While everyone else is distracted by who has the best car or the finest watch, you are quietly building something that cannot be measured by display windows, your own autonomy. Discretion is not a sign of mediocrity. It is the trademark of those who have already escaped the greatest prison of all, the opinion of people who do not even understand the value of a single minute of your life. If you want to understand what truly matters in your life, there is a mental exercise that is both the most terrifying and the most liberating one imaginable. Imagine that today is your last day, not in a poetic way, but in a raw and brutal one. If you discovered that your countdown had reached 0, what would you be doing right now? Would you be worried about that negative comment on the internet? Would you be anxious about a credit card debt? Would you be trying to impress someone who barely knows your name? Probably not. And that is the beauty of finitude. It is the perfect filter for noise. Most people live as if they possess an unlimited supply of time. They postpone projects, difficult conversations, career changes, and investments in their own growth as though they could simply make up those days later. But time is not renewable. Every moment you hesitate because of fear of other people's judgment is a moment thrown away. Death is not a distant event that happens only to others. It is a constant companion that has walked beside you since the day you were born. And strangely enough, it is precisely this fact that gives weight and meaning to every action you take. The practical impact of this clarity is transformative. When you adopt awareness of mortality as a compass, you stop procrastinating because of fear of failure. Why fear failing in a new venture if in the end, failure is an inevitable destination for everyone? When you accept that failure is merely a technical detail on a very short timeline, the paralyzing weight of fear disappears. Failure stops being a verdict about who you are and becomes simply a lesson that you can carry with you to the grave. Living in the light of finitude is what separates achievers from the stagnant masses. The stagnant masses seek security, comfort, and the avoidance of friction. Those who understand finitude seek intensity. You do not need more time. You need more presence. You need more courage to let go of what is trivial and focus on what is vital. When you use death as a filter, your hierarchy of values changes dramatically. You stop wasting energy on petty conflicts and begin investing it in what builds a legacy. You realize that your future self, 20 years from now, will thank you for the courage you had today to face your fears instead of hiding behind a comfort zone that leads nowhere. Finitude should not make you sad. It should make you urgent. It is the reminder that the game is short, the match is unique, and every second spent living to please others is a second stolen from yourself. Stop living as though you have all the time in the world. Your time is your scarcest asset. Use it as if your life depended on it because, in truth, it does. The Art of Constructive Indifference, your manual for freedom. We have reached the final point of our deconstruction. After understanding that you are small, that your ego is a lie, that anxiety is merely noise, and that your time has an expiration date, one final question remains. What do I do with my life from now on? The answer lies in constructive indifference. Many people confuse indifference with apathy. An apathetic person cares about nothing because they have given up on feeling. They have become an emotional zombie. Constructive indifference is the opposite. It is an act of extreme emotional intelligence. It is the ability to choose, with almost military precision, where you will invest your energy, your focus, and your effort. How does this work in practice? Think of your life as a limited battlefield. You have a finite amount of ammunition, your time, your money, and your mental capacity. If you spend that ammunition firing at everything that moves other people's opinions, tragic news you cannot solve, gossip, status crises, then when the real enemy appears, the opportunity to change careers, the chance to make an investment, or the need to learn a new skill, you will be unarmed. Constructive indifference is the act of saying, "I don't care," to 90% of the things trying to steal your attention. You must become the guardian of your mental gate. When someone tries to judge you, when fear of scarcity strikes, or when a distraction appears, apply this filter. Does this bring me closer to my identity, my values, and my freedom, or is it merely a trap for my ego? If it is a trap, simply exercise your indifference. You do not argue. You do not fight. You do not justify yourself. You simply ignore it and redirect your strength toward building your personal empire. Living intentionally means living with ruthless priorities. Constructive indifference means caring deeply about the quality of your work, the depth of your relationships, and the integrity of your financial decisions while becoming completely blind to the circus happening around you. Ultimately, this is not a guide to becoming cold or distant. It is a guide to becoming focused. Life is too short to be spent managing problems that are not yours, pursuing goals that are not yours, and suffering over judgments that do not define you. When you master the art of ignoring what is irrelevant, what remains is clarity. And clarity is, without a doubt, the most valuable asset a human being can possess. You do not need to carry the weight of the world. You only need to carry the weight of your own journey. And believe me, if you do that with total focus, without being distracted by the noise, the impact you will have on the world will be far greater than that of someone who spent an entire lifetime trying to please everyone and ended up pleasing no one. We have reached the end of this diagnosis, but this is only the beginning of your real work. You have seen that the burdens you carry, the need for approval, the fear of failure, the anxiety about the future are not a sentence. They are a choice. A choice you have been making through inertia, day after day. The universe is vast and different, and yes, your presence within it is incredibly small. But instead of shrinking in the face of that reality, you can use it as your greatest source of fuel. You do not need to be the center of the stage to have value. You only need to become the conductor of your own orchestra. From this moment on, the game has changed. Every time anxiety strikes, every time fear of other people's opinions tries to paralyze you, or every time the temptation of appearances tries to drain your capital, you will have this filter. Is this noise or is it action? Is this status or is it freedom? Do not try to change everything at once. Real growth does not happen through grand leaps. It happens through consistency in the next step. Your life is the only thing you truly own, and wasting it trying to live inside someone else's draft is the only failure you should fear. Your time is now, your place is here, and your freedom is the only metric that truly matters. If this message resonated with you, if it pulled you out of the ordinary and gave you a little more clarity about your own journey, do not let it become just another video you watched and forgot. Turn insight into action. Build, study, focus on what matters. Leave the rest to those who have time to waste. We are here to evolve, to think more deeply, and to build a life that, when the curtain finally falls, was lived exactly the way we chose. Join us in the next videos. Together we will continue refining this journey of growth, discovery, and sovereignty. Welcome to the next level.